Are you in the market for a house, but you're wondering, hey, I'm gonna be spending this much money on a purchase. Should I actually go build myself a house or should I go buy an existing home? In this video, I'm gonna be going over the cost of building a house that's about 2,500 square feet here in New Hampshire and compare it to about the same caliber home that's an existing house. So let's get right into it. Surprisingly, after doing some research on the subject, I actually found out that New Hampshire is one of the cheaper states to build in, at least for around the Northeast, coming in about $100 to $200 less per square foot than other surrounding states, which was pretty surprising for me and kind of good to know, that's for sure. And the average cost to build in New Hampshire is about $150 per square foot, which would put a 2,500 square foot building right around the $375,000 mark. But I do want to say that this seems like it's on the lower end because even on their website, which I got a lot of this information from, and it's linked down below, even on that website, it shows for about 2,500 square foot house, the lower end is $375 and the higher end's about $500,000, which that sounds about right in my ears. But of course, there's so many variables to take into account while building a house and actually budgeting for a house, because you take into account the actual cost for the land, what type of house you're gonna build, if you're gonna do 2 stories or a ranch, or if you're gonna really do anything, you know, the finishes you put in, if you're gonna add a garage, all this is either adding or subtracting from the total budget, and it's gonna be completely up to what you decide to build. But right now I'm going to break down the percentages that should be allocated towards each part of the building process and kind of the average for New Hampshire so that you can be aware of the costs. So of course, the first thing to build a house that you need is land to build the house on. And this usually costs people about 10 to 25% of the total budget for building. Now, again, this is completely subject to where you're looking on buying a piece of land and what type of land you're buying, because I don't think I have to explain very much, but if you're looking in a very low population rural town, chances are the land out there is going to be a lot cheaper than if you're looking somewhere in a city with a lot of population and a lot of popularity. Next is construction materials, and this came in at about 50% of the total budget, which is kind of surprising to me. I thought it was going to be more than that, but of course, there's a lot of other things you have to pay for and take into account while building a house. And by the way, if you're getting value from this video, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. So now that you got the land and you got the building materials, well, now you actually need to pay someone to build the damn thing. So this is where the costs of build come in and the cost of labor. So the cost of labor is usually about 25 to 30% of the total budget. But that's just for the labor costs. If you want to get a general contractor or what they call a GC to actually run the project, oversee everything, oversee all the moving pieces, another 10 to 25% of the budget. And what the GC does, again, he runs kind of everything. He oversees all the other contractors and makes sure that they're doing their jobs properly and everything's going as planned. Now, some people, while they build their house, they'll act as their own general contractor, but I feel like the only way you should do that is if you actually have some history in construction and knowing how to manage people and actually knowing what the building process is, or I feel like you're just going to be lost. And you're also going to have to allocate a lot of time to going out and doing these things to make sure everything's happening. So, I mean, if you're just an everyday, I just want to get a house put up, and it's not like you're investing in real estate or any of that stuff, I'd highly suggest just getting a GC and paying him his due. Now, of course, you're actually going to have to pull permits and pay fees to the state and the town that you're building in to actually make sure this is all legal and you're actually getting an address and everything goes actually legally to plan. This is usually about 5 to 10% of the total budget. And again, if you hire a general contractor, usually they're the ones that are going to pull the permits and make sure everything gets pulled for electrical, for plumbing, for all the building, because the towns and the cities like to make sure that you hit every little step, because yes, it's for safety. Yes, I understand, but it's also because they just like collecting their dues. And now one thing I want to mention here that I did not see on this website, again, it's linked down below, and it's a very good website to look at for reference, but I didn't see anything about water and septic. So these are going to be kind of a little bit varying of cost because it depends if you're buying land with pre-existing systems on it, if you're in a city where you can hook up to town water and sewer, or if you're just buying a completely raw piece of land and you actually have to dig a well and put in a septic system. Those could be very costly items. Usually each of those are about $5,000 to $10,000, give or take. Of course, depending on how deep you need the well, this could all be different. And of course, what size septic you need could be a different cost. So these things are just a little bit something to definitely keep in the back of your mind and have questions about, because again, I did not see these in the article. And now the last cost I want to mention before getting into the cost of the pre-existing houses is actually not a cost monetarily wise. It's a cost of time, because if you're building a house, you really have to commit to the time. In New Hampshire, it's about a 9 to 12 month timeline to actually get a house from the ground up and you living in it. So you have to actually be prepared for that and have something in place for when you're actually getting it built where you're living. So now let's talk about the typical cost to buy an existing home here in New Hampshire. And over the past 5 years, home prices have skyrocketed. They've went from around $250,000 to around $440,000 as of December 2023. Now, of course, this wasn't just New Hampshire. The whole country saw a spike in real estate prices. But again, it's something to take into account when you're looking to go make a home purchase or sell a house. So when I did my research on this, I looked at recent sales in the past 12 months, and I looked at houses anywhere from 2,000 square feet to 2,700 square feet that was built before 2022. So meaning that it's been lived in. And the median sales price for those houses came in at an alarming $542,000. Now, off of first impression, you're like, well, wouldn't it just be stupid to go buy an existing house? Shouldn't I just go build a house if I can build something for under $400,000 compared to buying a pre-existing for $540,000? If that's the exact case, yes, I think it'd be kind of silly and you should probably go build a new house. But you have to take account when you're going to look at these specific costs, please look in the actual location you're going to either build or buy in, because they can be very skewed. Like, these numbers are definitely taking into account like cities like Manchester, like Portsmouth, where prices are way higher than out here towards Keene or up towards Claremont. So you're going to see a big skew in numbers, because while that shows $542,000 for a 2,700 square foot house, around Keene, you're probably looking in the mid 300s, maybe 400s. So you're definitely going to want to look, because it can vary from county to county and even from town to town. So make sure you kind of dive into the specifics when you're kind of running, hey, should I buy this or should I build that? Now, before I wrap this video up, I want to talk about 3 additional things that you should really take into account while looking at, hey, do I actually want to build, or should I just go buy something that's already existing and take kind of the easier route, especially for a first-time home buyer? Now, the first thing is committing to building, because again, it's not only the timeline you're working with, and it's not only the cost, but it's also, you're probably going to want to build in some type of financial cushion there, because who knows if it goes over the allotted time period that you have to maybe pay more rent, or it goes over budget. Because I've been in real estate for 5-6 years now, and I've never really seen too many things, whether new build or just renovations on an existing house, ever come in like at or below budget. Usually it's some way it's running above budget, so you're going to want to build that into your costs. Next is, everyone thinks, hey, I'm going to go build. That's the easy way out, because I can't find a house right now, because that's why prices have skyrocketed, is because the lack of inventory, especially here in New Hampshire. So a lot of people get in their head, hey, since I can't buy a house, why don't I just go build one? Well, just an FYI, land could be something that's hard to find for you. So you're going to want to actually look at where you're looking. Hey, is there actually land available? Because there could be land available, but it just might not be buildable land. And then you're kind of in the same position where, like, you just can't get the actual thing to get started, whether it's an existing house or just a piece of land. And lastly, you're probably going to need a little bit more money out of pocket if you're going to go build a house versus going to buy an existing house, just because you're a little bit more limited on the actual loan products that they're going to give you for each thing. If you're going to buy an existing house, there's so many loans for it. And on the other hand, if you're buying, of course, you're going to be a little bit more limited on the loans you can actually get for that. So I hope you enjoyed this video and it added some value. If it did, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're looking to buy a house here in New Hampshire, make sure to reach out to me today.